Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Misfit Happy Hour. It is July 20th. It's 4:21. Today, we've had another march up to the Bears' chagrin, and we're all getting together this afternoon to kind of knock the ball around and just, test out. How should we say? We're going to test out a few of our favorite diagnoses of what happened today. And so I'm joined by my good friend David and his friend Reed. And we will try and not pollute anybody's bias with our own bias, but excuse us if we travel down a few rabbit holes of like, oh, we've seen this before, or deja vu. David, you ever seen deja vu in the market?
Yeah, all the time, man.
Right?
Feels
How
like
about
a
you?
feels like a dream.
Right? How about you, Reed? Ever seen deja vu? Ever stuff happen again?
I haven't been in it too long, but the answer is yes, definitely. And those are actually some of the best moments. So.
Right? Like, we used to know a guy named Tommy Trainer, was a huge trader in the pit, and he would always say the hair on my arm stands up is worth more than a Nobel Prize. So, David, did you survive the 4th of July fist up your butt with your shorts?
Oh, July 4th. No, I was out of the country actually. I was in Colombia.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Remember, we
Yeah.
had spoken, and I was like, you have to
Oh
be
yeah,
careful.
you mentioned that. Yeah. So I
So we
passed it along to the people I chat with. They
and
all watched the episode too, so they should have known.
Yeah,
But
Reed,
yeah,
we were talking about it before the 4th of July, and we weren't sure how it was going to play out, and so I just mentioned, hey, there's this tendency before a patriotic holiday that to circle the wagons, and stocks go with it. And so, just so for your own knowledge, everybody watching, and hopefully Reed in the future, right? Always right before Thanksgiving, right? Before Thanksgiving, be careful. Before Christmas, be careful,
yeah.
right? They
Especially on the short side, because the shorts get it's harder to play because it's like a Friday on steroids because no one wants to hold it that long
right, and the
leading up to
kids,
it.
right? The kids are left in charge of the cookie jar,
Yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
so that anyway, so for everybody, we have had Tesla's earnings. We're not exactly sure what they were. The stocks are lower, currently 39.56 if you're watching this at a later time. We've had a big bounce with marginal structure off the low. Of course, um, David and Reed, my most recent thinking is that everybody's biases, right? Like, they've bought every dip for the last 20 years and gotten rich, right? And nobody can trade because of high frequency or did you see that sell-off today? How they just rolled over out of nowhere?
Yeah, it's not the same market as before, man. When I walk down the street or I grab an Uber or something, it's you don't hear buy the dip, but
Right.
you don't hear the kumbaya moments anymore of buying dips.
Right.
Bitcoin right now, did you see the Bitcoin chart right now? It just dumped into like really nasty.
Oh, it
Yeah.
So
did.
yeah, it was rallying and then like all day long and all
So,
night long, and then it just like took a huge hit. Um, and you're saying Tesla did too? I haven't looked at
No, I
Tesla.
haven't looked at the test. I'm just looking at the futures. They're 39.57. I mean, it's not like I mean, anyway, today, for people who aren't familiar or watching it at a later time, this morning someone came and bought them hard off the opening, kind of out of place, sort of. You could suspect they either had a lot to buy and they needed to bury some people, or they just had a lot of cash and they needed to spend it. And so they ran them pretty hard, like 40 handles. And then typically with one of these jam and sit jobs, they just jam them higher and then they sit there for as long as 3 days if it's a big jam and sit. And then, but they just fell out of bed, which later in the day. And of course, which was surprising and kind of a tell. And in regards to the top of book, right, for people who are familiar with the amount sitting on the top of the deck in the S&P, I saw a tweet by Zero Hedge saying that there's only 3 million. You can only hit the bid for 3 million if you need to hit the bid. How liquid is the biotechs, you guys? You guys are Reed, what are you trading?
so I just anything that's up 20% or more, pretty much. But I'm a small
Shorts
cap,
it.
Small cap short seller, 75% of my profits are foreign companies, mainly Chinese. Just a few basic strategies for the most part. I do want to say one thing though. It's kind of funny because bringing it back to earlier, last weekend I was at the casino Saturday night, and it was like 9, 10, 11 p.m. And I go there and I'm bringing my cousin from Canada, and he's younger. He's never been to a casino. And I'm like, yeah, this is a pretty good one. It gets pretty rowdy and everything. And we go there. It's been a while. There is nobody there. Nobody at the casino. All of the stimmy money's gone. It was a perfect example to me of like recently how I've seen the trend of the markets throughout the entire year, and how I feel like it's more sharks versus sharks right now rather than sharks eating a bunch of minnows all the time. It's been a little bit more difficult this year, especially with my particular plays. And I haven't been in the market that long, so I've really had to adapt, learn a lot of new things, and have like way more conviction to enter and get into trades. And anyways, I just thought that was hilarious because I go to the casino every once in a while, and there has been less and less and less people there every month. And I just think that that's similar to the markets in some ways.
Oh, that's a great metaphor. David, are you seeing any liquidity in the stuff you trade?
It's like Reed said, because we trade very similar as well. It's like shark versus shark. The short selling brokers have all raised their borrow fees, have all raised the locates. It's like every stock that goes up, like, on air or whatever, is getting bombarded with shorts. So you're fighting other short sellers, and you can tell like when a stock is on SSR, short sell restriction, it's just really hard to get filled because it's just you're shorting into another short seller constantly. It's just constantly rotating short, so and like it's shark versus shark. It's like short sellers are the more sophisticated players in general. So like you're playing against more sophisticated players now, so it's a little trickier. Like Reed said, you gotta be way more selective, and just the criteria, you gotta bump up the criteria to enter a trade up a notch. But
isn't it? It's so weird, you guys. It's like, I mean, without getting crazy, it seems like the world has lost any sort of bounded rationality, and so like you say, it's shark versus shark. What is a shark? It's like a psychopathic machine, right? It's just like there's no sort of professional courtesy. It's like, if you're wrong on a trade,
yeah.
Sure, everybody out there is laughing too, right? If you're wrong in a trade.
Shark eats shark, and it's like there's no mercy,
Yeah. So right, if for everybody who's watching, just make sure that you have a time or a price stop, and then you know what I learned, David, is that a response to trauma, right? So all of a sudden the trade goes bad, and so the first response apparently to trauma is a narcissistic response. In other words, you see someone else get in a car accident, you're like, oh, that's too bad, right? The guy, hits him from behind or something. You're like, that's too bad. But then they hit your car, and you're like, who the fuck, right? And so the trade goes bad. The trade goes bad, and we're like, we get angry. Right? Have you noticed that? Like,
it's happened to me, for sure.
Reed, right? Reed's like nodding too, right? Like it happens to us, right? So the transition from like, how dare they, or can you believe these sharks, or that frustration. I mean, Reed, you understand frustration. Reed, you're a golfer, right? That's the name of the tune there, right? Frustration, like
just 1 millimeter, whatever it is, off.
How can you help us with this? Like, how do we get past that initial response? Like, say you've arrived in a frustrating situation, and for David and I, say we're in a trade and something goes bad, or it's they like today, this morning, they ran them, and all sorts of front running, and there's all sorts, it's not a level playing field. And so as a golfer, you're facing your own accountability right there in front of you, right? You got to walk to the bad shot that you just hit. How can David and I get past that initial instinct to yell at ourselves or to yell at the screen?
Process trumps results. So at the beginning of whether you've done the trade or not, and whether you've hit the golf shot or not, there's always another golf shot, right? You've got to go hit the next one literally in a couple minutes. There's another trade opportunity coming up, right away. And the only thing that you can do, I think, in the markets and in general is we don't have infinite knowledge. We go through our process. We go through all of our checkpoints. David and I used to be just 2 to 3. Now it's 6, 7, 8, 9. If you go through all of your checkpoints, and if it makes sense and you do the trade and going against you, you just can't, hang your hat on that. You have to understand that the process is actually what's going to make us a bunch of money in the markets, because if you stick to that over time, you're going to win a lot more than you lose. And any type of an emotional reaction to that is probably not going to yield very good results. So I've always been really, really process oriented and focused on the preparation more than the results, even with golf, because there are so many outside factors that can happen. Think of golf, right? You've got weather, right? That's big. One bounce here or there with the misfits of the course, all of that. I mean, you could play a really stellar round of golf and not score very well. You can be on your game trading for a few weeks and really just your plays aren't there. They're not quite working out. Of course, we all have to adapt, but you just have to continue to focus on the process. That's it. I guess it is machine-like in a way. I mean, that's how we kind of always operated is, here, goals, process, and then we're no good if we don't adapt our process. But I mean, that's kind of what I would say.
I want to hear from David, but I just want to ask you one quick question. How do you diffuse a heated emotional state when you're playing golf? Like David's like, I care. Before July 4th, he was like, this is a freaking sport. This is what we do, right? Our life is into this. We're competing against the smartest people in the world. Like we really care. We want to win, and we're here to win. And we have continually been tested and survived, but we suffer the emotional. We can certainly get emotionally attached or affected. That's maybe the word I'm looking for. How do you talk yourself down when you're playing golf and you get pissed at yourself? Because you can't get pissed at anybody else, right?
No, it's all on you. That's why I love the sport. That's why I love trading. But you have to have very good self-reflection right away. But this all happens with experience, because I already knew from experience and getting mad my entire life from golf that it never did me any good. And I eventually learned to adapt. And, I used to have a really bad attitude in high school and even, maybe the start of college. And my dad was a professional hockey player, and he wrote me this handwritten, I've still got it right up here, this letter, 6 pages long, and it's all about the word attitude. And he sent me this tape from Earl Nightingale. If anybody types in Earl Nightingale attitude, there's this nice little 20-minute audio clip, and it's the best thing I ever listened to. And honestly, that day forward changed my whole perspective on not just trading or golf or whatever, everything. Just live your life with a really good, positive attitude, focus on the process. Results aren't always going to be there. And it is what it is. And when you start having that mindset, you will still get angry. It's a normal human emotion, but you're able to curb that and channel that and understand what's happening and realize that that's not going to lead you to the promised land. So that's what
David, all yours, David.
Oh man, that's a gem right there,
Isn't that?
So that's a gem. So
Right.
it's just like your attitude, like with trading, I have not countless, probably like 20 audiobooks on mindset, on positive attitude. Just today, I was at the gym right before this, and I was listening to, what's it, Minervini?
Mark Minervini.
Mark Minervini, one of his success books of like just being successful and doing things at a high level. It's just a beautiful book. And like when you start to like really immerse yourself into all this, it's like, for me especially, like I had a bad attitude a few years ago as well. I was bitter. I left my architecture career and I'm starting from scratch. I'm in so much debt. And I had a bad attitude. And I noticed the guys that are succeeding. And I played sports in the past. I played baseball in college, but that was a long time ago. That's another lifetime ago. And I forgot about all that. But it's easy to, for me, I just immersed myself back in, and I was able to clean up all my, just switch up my attitude. Like, okay, is my bad attitude is not going to help this trading. And that's trading, there's very few things you can control. And like attitude, you can't get control of it one way or another. It's on you. It's not the market. You can't control the market, but you can, figure out a way to get the attitude in check. And what's crazy is that once you do that, you start to, like Mark Minervini was mentioning in the chapter I just read right now or listened to about the reticular activation system. It's like, even if you're not paying attention, you're gonna pick it up, because that now you're almost programmed to like get attracted to certain things. And for me, it's been that way. I just went to a trading conference this weekend, and like I'm tired and all that. I'm zoned out a little bit. But once certain things get mentioned, some nuggets of information, all of a sudden I'm like the tire and jet lag, everything is out. So it's just like switching, getting your attitude in check, and then like compounding good traits and good habits that involve attitude. Oh man, like yeah, so like I run across new traders all the time, and I'm like, the first, I mean, I don't, it's hard to discuss someone's attitude with them, you know what I mean? I'm not his coach. He does not pay me, but I can tell right away this person's attitude needs to, they need to work on their attitude first before they get into trading. And I don't know, it's what I did.
Think about, right, the understanding that you have confirmation bias, right? And so you think, most people, I'm not suggesting Reed or David or myself, which I'm sure we do. We have confirmation bias, and then the Dunning-Kruger thing, right, where 70% of the people think they're the better than average. So in regards to talking to other people, you can't share karma, right? The idea of that they've gotten there on their own cause and effect, just like we have. But in regards to trading and the accumulated trauma that we're dealing with, Reed's pretty green. David's got a lot more experience, and so do I. And so, the markets are like playing chess with a psychopath. So we're going to get traumatized because of what we perceive as non-rational, non-linear, subjective price movements. And so we're like, well, that didn't make sense. And then of course you're going to try and fade something that doesn't make sense, and then you're going to experience trauma because you can't be perfect in your timing, right? And then that's to our question that goes to Reed, is like, Reed's been playing golf for a long time. Like the stress of playing golf at a high level must be similar to the stress of trading at a high level. And so Reed, what do you do to bleed off the accumulated traumas or stresses of the game?
You're really bringing me back to some of the things that I didn't enjoy as much about playing golf at a very high level. And I'm just saying,
sorry.
Because you learn from all of this your entire life, but expectations can really doom you. Like, and that's why I keep process. I just keep saying that word, and it's up here. It's everywhere. Process, because expectations can really hurt you. And with golf, that's when I was at my worst, and that's when the stress would just way down, is when you expected to play well, or you expected this to happen, or everything's been going well lately, and this is a great opportunity. And why do we see so many people fail, on the final round Sunday when it's their first time at a major and all of that? Nothing's different other than the pressure that you're putting on yourself. Now, with trading, what I would say is the most of the pressure for me comes after a red day, right? And David and I are very, we have high win percentages overall. Red days don't come very often, thankfully,
Yeah.
But when you do have a red day, or when I have like a bad week of trading, I start to that pressure and that expectation that I need to start performing. And I do trade accounts now for others, and there's some expectations and stress involved with that as well. So channeling all of that, having no expectations and being blank and just taking in the information from the screens, processing it as quickly as possible and focusing on your process is everything. And the other thing is like, there's always, these complicated answers that everybody has to answer these questions and all of that. And really at the end of the day, you don't make it that complicated. You find a process that works and you keep harping on it, and that's what you do. And then you try to fix all these things and start all of this new stuff and research this and that. And then you get kind of carried away, and you really just have to hone in on a few important things that have worked for you.
I mean, essentially, that's what this conversation is all about. Why did we used to get together as a group of traders off the floor and have a beer after work? Was to shoot the breeze and to bleed off some of that trauma.
Yeah.
Which is so personal because there's no one else but you experiencing it.
Right.
So it's almost like we're therapists listening to people who want to kill themselves. And then eventually after a while, we're just like, God, stop with this pain and suffering. But it's all our own personal story that we've got to somehow come to grips with, and then get our shit together and show up in the morning and be just like lucid and resilient again. Everybody out there, we feel you out there.
You need to understand yourself. You need to understand who you are, your tendencies, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and how that's going to relate to being down on a trade or being up on a trade. All of that.
Lance, discredited Lance Armstrong, said that form is a mysterious thing. You can practice and practice and practice and then be up to your top form, and then it mysteriously disappears. Does that happen in golf?
Absolutely. Oh, yes, absolutely. All the time. And golf is a very rhythmic game where technically everything can be sound, but upper body, lower body, temperature, so many different things have to be working at the exact same time. Then you have to be in rhythm and in your flow state, which we talk about in trading too.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you get out of it just a little bit, and if your mind starts running, you start questioning some things of what you're doing, you start overthinking, and then everything, unravels, and you got to find a way to bring yourself back in. What are those 2 or 3 things that you can always hang your hat on and focus on that are going to bring you back? And then the thing that you have to remember is, like, bringing you back into the flow state does not mean that your results are just going to immediately start happening. It just means that you need to bring yourself back to give yourself the opportunity to have good results. Don't be so result oriented all the time.
Oh, there's the process element, which is right. So you're not necessarily attached to the results, but more aligned with the process, and then let the results take like you hear the kids when they're walking to the outer courts in the week before the US Open, and they say, what's your strategy? And they just say, like, I'm going to play till I lose. Right. Stuff like that. Right. Where they're just, anyway, David.
Yeah.
How do you bleed? How do you bleed off stress, David?
How do I bleed off stress? It's just, it sounds corny, but I go for long walks, and here, especially in Puerto Rico and in downtown LA, and I listen to some audiobooks. Reed mentioned the flow state. There's one good book the title is Flow State. I like, or Flow, I think it's
Flow
just Flow.
he's got a really long name.
He's an Indian guy.
Or Sisman
Really?
Something. Yes, I read it years ago. It's very good.
Yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, the flow state is important, and it's just like when I have a red day, or when I have a few times this year I didn't have a red day, but it was just such a frustrating day in general, where, like, I caught myself at one point. I never do this, but I was yelling on the phone at someone.
Right.
I never do that, but I was just so frustrated, and I was like, okay, I'm done trading today. This is, my attitude is off. Everything's off. Like, why am I yelling at the phone?
Hey, Reed.
At someone on the phone.
Hey, Reed, can I yell at the screen instead of hitting the mouse? Is that a better way to bleed off the screen, or bleed off the stress? Is just be like, I can't believe you guys, who is buying them here, right? Kind of thing, right? And like, is that, I guess that's less harmful than hitting the mouse and making it worse.
Yeah, as long as everyone's going to understand what works for them, right? And as long as it's internal, and I don't think it's external towards others, why you're mad because they're doing this and all of that, as long as you're channeling your inner self, and if that's your quick reaction. Tiger Woods would always say that his dad would let him have 5 to 10 seconds after a bad shot to do whatever the heck he wanted, and that was it. And then after that, he had to bring that in and move on to the next task. So there's
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you're welcome at happy hour anytime. We need more of this. To everybody listening, please listen. It's
Yeah.
it's so good.
But yeah, I will have one night, and then I got to get back in the morning. I have a plan to always trade small and build myself back up. Usually it takes me a few trades or a couple of days, seeing, just getting through the process, getting back on the tracks once again.
Come
And
on, David. Come on, David. You're chasing flow state, just like me, just like Reed. We're all just chasing that flow state, right?
yeah,
It's like we're
absolutely.
junkies. We're total junkies for the flow state of being in step with an organic process that's the markets that's way out of our control.
Yeah.
Like these guys who live in Hawaii and they spend their whole life chasing swell.
Yeah, right.
Right? For real. It's, or the ski bums, the guys who, finally make it up to Alaska and have a job, or in British Columbia, guiding for heli, stuff like that. It's right. Chasing flow state, right?
Chasing flow state. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
That's the name of the game.
Right.
You know what helps too is although this is an individual sport, I call it a sport.
So does David.
Yeah.
Is having somebody else to lean on, having others just like this, like we're talking right now, about your process. Like, David and I have become really good friends, and I trust him and I trust his opinion with everything. And he's made me a better trader and influenced me in positive ways. And surrounding yourself with people like that is very important. But the other thing is, as somebody new, you always have to be able to provide some type of value to that other person to have like a really good symbiosis and a good relationship. And
Reciprocity. Sorry to interrupt.
reciprocity. Now, that's the really important thing, because there are so many people out there, and even friends of mine, that see some success in different things, and they want to ask you a bunch of questions. And how did you do this and this and that? And of course, I want to help people, but you have to have done a lot of work yourself already to show that you deserve this new knowledge, and that you've earned some of it, and that you can maybe provide something as well, because you've already done your due diligence through studying and all of that, and you can provide something, even if it's just a little bit. So for all of the people that are newer traders and stuff that, ask David all of these questions too, on his Friendly Bear podcast, and to get into our little chat room stuff that we have and all of that, inch your way there, but you be able to provide some type of value in a way, and not be maybe leech is a decent term to use. So,
I ski a lot, right? And so I have friends that I ride the chair with, and all over, many different ski areas. And so it's really easy to have a fun time with friends that you only have a fun time with.
Yeah.
Right. But the friends that we have, this is battle, where there are people who lose everything, and we lose friends here. And so that doesn't necessarily happen in a resort, or, at a beach town, or maybe even on the golf course. I'm not sure, right? Like, you don't lose friends like people come back and play another round, even if they have a bad round. But so I think, to your point, is that the community, that wherever you find your friends in this crowd, is very helpful in surviving, because God knows you can't be perfect, and God knows you're always going to be early. And because you're early, you're going to need a thick skin to survive the move against you before it goes your way. And because your spouse, partner doesn't understand what that feels like, and we can sympathize with think about it, right? Like, are you early or are you wrong? Okay, that's the first step. Then, okay, I've decided that I'm early, and now I'm right. Now, how much of the trade is, as the trade unfolds, like, do I add? Do I take profits? Do I let it go? You know, think about that. And there's virtually anybody who just is like, honey, I'm going to play softball at 2 o'clock on Saturday, has no clue the mental process that you face when you have to just do things when the time is right rather than at a specific time.
And how do you teach that? I mean, how do you just tell somebody that that's newer, and
Right?
it's very difficult. And then the one thing I'll add, because you had talked about friends and all that, like David, now, how many times, I guess this year, 6.5 months, have you and I, even in our little chat room or whatever, gone at it just a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I yell at Paul.
Yeah, you could
Paul
sense it too in the chat.
You can sense
Right.
it, and I know David senses it, and David's going to keep going with it, and I keep going with it, and too. But I learned from all of those, and
yeah, it's like fuck you, no, fuck you.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And then sometimes I cool down and go away for a couple hours. I come back.
Right, and you're welcome back. And you're welcome back. The only thing that I've learned over the years on the floor is that you should never criticize a person's ability to execute the trade. So if you think he's crazy, you say, maybe you should rethink that, because you want to be able to leave the person, no matter what happens, leave the person with the ego strength to hit the mouse, to make the next shot, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just say them, so politely suggest to them, because we all have so much mutual respect because we're all professionals, right? We've all made it this far. So it's like, okay, I'm essentially I'm sounding out what could be a crazy idea, and you should say, maybe you should rethink that if you don't agree, because again, like, we have to leave the person with enough ego strength to hit the mouse.
Absolutely. And like I think what Reed is getting at when we argue, or like when we are having a discourse, I see it as a discourse. And Adam, we've had Adam on the Misfits too. It's the same thing. With us, the way I see it is we're getting closer to the truth when we're having this discourse. And I try my best to make it on my part, at least, to like, because it's a chat. You don't really see the person's emotion through the screen or anything. You're just seeing words being typed. So the way I see those is that we're digging deeper into why a stock is moving, what is the catalyst. Did we go through our process to check through, is the float accurate, are the stats accurate that we just gathered, because we're running trades by each other and we trade the same things. So it's like, did you miss something on the checklist? Did you see this? What do you think of this catalyst? Is this catalyst bullshit? Is it real? Is it like, is it irrelevant? And like, how do you word it instead of just saying like it's irrelevant? Like, that's kind of rude. So like, you don't really want to, because you want to leave an open-ended for discourse,
Right.
so you can get deeper to see what's going on. And that's how we make money, when we get to the truth and to see, so we can have better conviction.
I mean,
so like,
essentially, are we asking each other, what am I missing?
At times, yes.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much, and I think we've done that pretty well. Like, at times, when you're getting squeezed, it's kind of frustrating. Like today, for example, there was a Chinese stock dumping, and somebody was mentioning it in the chat, like a screenshot, and I didn't see the screenshot, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I was frustrated because I was getting squeezed on another stock, and then I think Reed or someone else said, "Oh, scroll up," and I scrolled up. I didn't see it, and then like I'm still getting squeezed more. I'm on the other stock that I'm in. I'm like, I can't see it. Like, I'm frustrated. And then Reed finally points out, "Oh, click it and open it up." And I was like, I wanted to type, "You should have said to open it up," like, but it's like, so. But then I, like, as a pro trader and like someone that's interested in mindset and all that, I realized right away, instant. I was like, that is not gonna. If I type, "You should have told me that"? That's not gonna get me anywhere. What's the purpose of saying that? It's not gonna help me. It's not gonna help Reed. So like, I didn't even put that in there. But David 3-4 years ago would have had an argument right there. I would have been like, "Why didn't you do this? Come on, man." Like, that's the frustration of getting squeezed and not being able to open something up. So it's like, it all goes back to attitude, and like, pausing and saying, what is going to help me in this situation? Is it me panicking more going to help me calming down more? And then also, like, I don't want to affect Reed's trading. You know what I mean? I don't want my frustration of getting squeezed on my stock to like get through the chat, and like he feels that I'm being rude to him now, and like why, and then like that adds an extra layer of stress because maybe he's going through some squeeze. You don't want to bring your stress onto others, and also so it's like when you're trading with other people that are serious and that are good, you know, like Reed performs very well and he's trading other accounts and everything. You want to not only check your attitude, but how your attitude is going to affect the other person. And like
Right.
having a good relationship with other traders, like I do with Adam and Reed, we understand that about each other very well. And I think also, you know, these days and age, like we have the whole Twitter profiles and like no one really knows who they're talking to. I know in the previous chat rooms, I didn't even know what the person looked like or what I never knew
Or
how I
even
was,
their name for
or
that
even their
matter.
name or anything. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So it's harder to deal with like that. But with Reed and Adam, I've dealt with them in person. We've do these Zoom calls all the time. Also, like we do podcasts together all the time. So I think, you know, it's an extra layer of understanding there of the person. I think that really helps us as a group, to tell you the truth. So
Yeah, Reed, I want to ask you a question, but David, that's super gracious and an understanding of how you're not trying to burden other people in reminding everybody listening, try not to, in a trading conversation, burden other people with your trauma, because everyone has a limited sort of hard drive capacity for their own trauma. And then if they're affected by yours, which they probably would be because they care about you, you're actually not, you may be trying to bleed off some of yours, but you're offloading it onto one of your friends. That's not really a wise thing. My question for Reed is that trading is so messy. Like, is golf as messy as that? I mean, and how are you with the fact that, I mean, like it's like messy leads to grit, right? Because you need to be able to fight back from what's not perfect.
I mean, isn't that just, sorry, philosophical, but that's like life and what
I keep right, right. Yes,
yeah,
no, you're not. You don't have to apologize. You should be like,
life
yeah,
is
that's
life is messy. We want to make it. We want to get in that flow state. We want to make everything as perfect as possible. I'm a very structured, detail-oriented person, and when I start getting off my rocker with different things, or if somebody cancels the appointments and wants to move stuff, I start to not, quite do as well. But I have to kind of embrace the messiness and understand that I can only control certain things, which is me, my attitude, all of that. And
yeah,
it,
it's not a perfect world. We can run down the list, right?
golf is messy. It's messy, I guess, in a way where you can work so hard, you can prepare so hard, you can do everything that you could, ever imagine. And this is for all sports and everything. And you just might not have it at the most important moment where you really need it. And that is very discouraging, and it's tough. And in golf, there's 150 players every tournament, which means the average golfer is going to win one out of every 150 times. I mean, if you finish top 25, that's great. Top 15, that's great. My fiance is on the Epson Tour, which is the second best professional women's tour. That's all throughout the United States. And if she hasn't won yet, right? I mean, top 25 is great, but you always leave these events like, she was near the top and she ended up finishing, I think, T11th a couple of weeks ago, and we left not feeling good and accomplished, even though it was a great finish, 11th out of 156 people. So that's very difficult in a sport where you never truly like win. You very rarely win. So I guess that's something I would say. It's usually discouraging because you could have always done better. You could have always done better.
So is it like we accept the fact that it's not a perfect world, that it's, I mean, like you say, it's like life, right? It's messy, right? Like just accept, I mean, if someone's a perfectionist, right? And, we used to have this thing, this kid Mike Wagner on the floor had a UFI, he called it the ultimate frustration index. Had you sold them better? Had you covered perfect? And he kept track of it, right? Like on his trades, like, right? Like, David, do you have a problem with
oh,
perfectionism?
he was tracking it.
Yeah.
No, actually, um, my trades are pretty sloppy if you consider like my entries and my exits. The overall thesis of the trades usually work out pretty well for me. But it's crazy how you can have good results, but you can still be kind of sloppy, and like I'm working on that every day to improve it. But like the guy you just mentioned, how far was he into trading? If he's trying to
Oh no, he
really,
was in the ring. He was a good trader for sure, no question. But he just did it as like if he were to be perfect, this is what he would have made versus what he did make.
I see. But it's because like you're never gonna be perfect in this, like, you're never gonna have the perfect entry, you're never gonna have the perfect exit. It's just like you want a good chunk of it, and you got if you focus on that, you'll be all right. So like, for example, when you mentioned the whole golf thing, I was thinking baseball, because I played baseball for a long time, man. I'm talking about like 20 years. The first 23 years of my life, that's all I did. um and baseball, you got the swing, and like I would take 1,000 swings before every night going to bed in front of a mirror, and like you can perfect it, but it's just like there's still little nuances here and there. Now comparing it to golf, I don't know anything about golf, but golf seems much more precise. You gotta, like, when I look at the golf players taking their swings or practicing, or Reed's looking at his videos like on social media and stuff, it's just like it's much more, it seems that extra control with golf, and maybe it reflects on his trading too, because like his entries are a lot better than mine's.
Right? It's
I,
less
I
golf
mean,
is less messy than baseball.
yeah, for sure. And like, baseball, you got the other side. You got to play defense and ground balls, diving here, getting dirty, and like it's almost like a dance. It's not really perfect. It's just like you're kind of just going with the flow and doing repetition many times. But golf seems much more like a game of really millimeters. And baseball too is a game of millimeters. It's a game of it's centimeters, I guess, as opposed to millimeters. But and I don't know. It's like you can always improve it, and that's the thing with training. You always got to be adapting. You always got to be improving. What are you gonna do? Like, that's why I still put in a ton of hours. I'm trying to improve that 1% every day. I'm trying, until, like, I don't know how, like, and I've noticed this about a lot of successful traders. They reach a certain point, and then it's kind of like cruise control from there. And
Yeah, hey,
I don't know.
I get it. What are you studying now?
I'm studying fundamentals. I went to that conference of Steven Ducks. This guy has made a ton of money short selling.
Uh-huh.
I've implemented it's crazy how just a couple of nuggets from someone and you can apply them right away. Just to consider like things like what he does, like float rotation or dollar block, like a certain amount. He has a system where a stock trades a certain amount of dollars, and then that's about it. It's bearish from there. Float rotation, it rotates the float a certain amount of times, and it's bearish overall from there. So like, and then my understanding now with fundamentals this year, I got to apply the fundamentals, the dilution, the all that combined, and then like, yeah, it's just like constant knowledge. So what am I working on? I'm working on just getting squeezed less often. one way or another. I'm trying to avoid like whatever can get me squeezed. One thing this year, and this year it's working. It's been working.
Good.
Last year, every month or two, I would get a really nasty squeeze, maybe once or twice a month. This year, same, I go through some squeezes, but they've been occurring a lot less. And I think it's because just increasing the process. Like Reed said, we had three criteria of like 3 last year. And now we have a whole list of criteria. We understand fundamentals a lot better. There's a woman, Ali Angel. She's taught me so much about fundamentals on
Oh, good.
top of the fundamentals that Adam taught me. I'm trading next to Adam at TradeSpace for all a year basically.
Mm-hmm.
So like, when you understand the fundamentals and what's going on internally of the stock, you can see the potential in a squeeze, or understand, okay, let me lay off the gas here. Instead of adding into the squeeze, I just lay off the gas and then maybe start to think of playing defense or cutting it altogether. So it's just like, I don't know, it's a constant just working on everything and mindset. There's just not enough mindset stuff you can work on. Because like when you have a red day, it's tough, man. Like I go for a walk or whatever, I listen to the audiobook, but like, you know, you just got to get yourself, like today I took a loss on a trade. I was swinging. And that's why it's good having friends that are like-minded too. Because like Reed was like, hey, now on to the next one. You know, it's always good.
Right.
It's,
We need more of Reed.
yeah. we need it. So it's good to hear that from someone else. Like I know it for myself, but when you hear it, it's like, all right, my friend agrees with me, like let's move on. Boom. And then it's crazy how you forget about these stocks like in a week or two. You forget it ever even happened.
Right.
You know, so it's gone to that point where controlling the squeeze, controlling the loss, expanding your knowledge, mindset, so you can come in. I used to take a couple of days off or even go on vacation after a loss, you know, or like a couple of years ago, I had a really good 2020, and then I had like a red month, and and I was like, I was questioning myself, just like what traders we always do. So like, and I've heard that like really successful traders having losses and then questioning themselves, and like as an outsider, someone that looks up to that trader, you're like, why would they question themselves? And then you go through it and you're like, you know, I understand why. So it's a constant internal battle, you know? So, you know, it's like constantly improving in that category. Like, what do you need to improve in that category? You know? So, for me, it's always going through the audiobooks, going through the positive mindset, journaling, going through like a diary. I have this, like, I journal a lot. You know, and, going through that process of your emotion in the trade and like why, and digging deep into why were you oversized? Why, you know, were you oversized because you're trying to make up for a loss too fast? Are you insecure about like what someone thinks of you, and then like you want to prove them wrong, or like how, and like that could be a good thing, but like it's got to be controlled. It can't just be this monster that just wants to oversize and prove something to someone else.
Hey, you're great friends with Reed. Where does he need to improve?
Reed, let's see. Patience on the winners, you know. He has a really good entries, and you know, we talk about this quite a bit, and it's very good entries, the best entries. And then he gets the wins, 3 to 5%. He takes it, but sometimes with the overall thesis we have of the stock, like we discuss the trades a lot. We're like, okay, it has dilution, the catalyst is BS. It's got a ton of resistance on the daily. It's got a lot of you know, all types of stuff.
Yeah,
and
but
he takes it off.
Right. I mean, and so Reed equal time. Where does David need to be better?
So I'm just going to say this first of all, by the way, that
in self-defense, of course, right?
No,
I have your problem, by the way. I get out too early.
Two things is, one, I value David's opinion probably of any trader the most, and he is 100% right. And also, and he'll probably know this, like, why do I take those wins and stuff? Well, it's structured. It's who I am as a person. I want to keep everything there. So I just want to guarantee it, right? I have to get away from that. I have to adapt as a person. I got to get better at letting those run. And David, you know, I got to make sure I'm covering morning of day 2, because my only 2 big losses this entire year, I didn't listen to my rules, right, man? So we know that. And then for David, what does David need to get better at? David is killing it this year overall. And Dave, you know, he's a little bit of a stubborn short seller at the end of the day. And
I know a few of them. Paul, my friend Paul Hornblower as well, very stubborn.
He is so right, and he's 100% right. And you just got to make sure sometimes that you're thinking of what are all the Momo, quote unquote, degenerates thinking on the exact same trade right now. And that's why I wait sometimes on my entries, because I know David has all this perfect fundamental, everything lines up.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I'm just going to get in. It means that I am going to wait still. And I miss some plays sometimes, but David could have better averages. And I mean, he always pretty much wins them anyways, but maybe he could make, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5% more on those wins.
I've been just to help with trying to hold on to winners, you know, when it's like, oh, you know, I've got if I'm counter trend trading, I've got 5 handles in the S&P or something against it. And I think to myself, could that have been the top? The only argument I can come up with is as long after, first of all, I'm going to sit here anyway all day. I might as well sit here with the winning position on. Maybe you could try that. Just say to yourself, if I cover, what am I going to do? I'm going to be sitting here without a position.
You know who says that? David.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
He's like, there's nothing else going on in the markets. I think this is going to probably fade by the end of the day, but what else am I doing? I'll cover a quarter and I'll let the last 3/4.
Right.
And honestly, most of the time it fades another 10%.
And of course, right, there's always Murphy's Law. So,
Yeah.
right, I don't want to fuck with your structure at all there.
But this is good to hear. That's why I like doing these podcasts and stuff. I always get something really good out of it, and it holds me accountable. You know what I'm saying? Like the podcast that I've done on my podcast has just it's improved my trading 1,000%.
Right.
So.
Well, Reed has helped us a lot. Thank you, Reed. That's been just really nice to know.
Absolutely.
Really fucking solid.
Really fun getting on with you guys. That's for sure. This is good. I love these discussions as well, and I really like learning a lot. I'm big into learning and being around you guys and people in the chat room, and I ask a lot of questions. I really do, and it's not that I don't think I always know the answer. I just want to know what everyone else is thinking so that we can all brainstorm together and find a common goal and solution. That's what David and I do. So it's what we're doing.
So yeah, the first rule in trading is that we don't know anything. So always refer back to the first rule. And then the second thing would be that on my first day on the floor of the big board in 1980 was that they said to me, there is no dumb question, but you just can't ask the same question twice.
Wow, good.
Okay.
That's good stuff.
Isn't that good stuff? All right, you guys. It's been an hour. We can't be too. We've asked people for an hour of their time. But everybody, thank you for coming. And Reed, nice to meet you. And David, of course, it's great to see you.
Likewise, good to be back, man.
Yeah, you guys. And try and bleed off the trauma. Reed, that's great about being able to just understand. We have to get on with it, right? Just get on with it.
Yeah. Your support system around you helps with that too, who you're surrounded with. So.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah. 100%.
Gents?
Thanks.
Thanks, man.
All right, guys. I'll see you later.
Yeah, see you later.